Hi Homeworthy, I'm Patricia. I'm going to show you around my home in Unionville, Pennsylvania. Come on in.
You're watching Homeworthy, where we believe every home has a story. Scan the QR code to subscribe to our new channel, Weddingworthy, where we celebrate amazing couples and the love stories behind their perfect day.
Hi Homeworthy, my name is Patricia May Olson, and I am the owner of Piqued PR and the Preppy podcast. We are in Unionville, Pennsylvania right now. My home is on the smaller side. It completely was gut renovated when I bought it. It originally was very modern, almost 70s, 80s style, and we renovated it to look more like a Pennsylvania schoolhouse, more cottage style, I would say. It's very preppy, being me, very colorful and full of pattern, and just lots of collected pieces. The process of finding the space is actually really funny because I live next door to my parents, which everyone laughs and they're like, how does your husband deal with that? But it's quite lovely, I have to say. So how I ended up here was, at the time, when I was 23, I bought this house. So at the time I was working in Center City, Philadelphia at an agency and commuting into Philly every day. I originally was looking at places all along the main line where the train stations were and had looked at a lot of places but didn't fall in love with anything. So my parents brought up the idea to me. They're like, why don't you ask our neighbors if they would ever sell? So the house at that point had been empty for a while. Basically, the people that owned this originally, their son moved overseas and bought them a house literally a road over that's much larger than this. That way, when he was here in the States with his whole family, he could stay at this new place. So they didn't really have a need to sell this and make money off of this, and it still needed a lot of work. They had renters in here for a little bit and then stopped with that. So it just sat empty for a really long time. And when I approached them, they said, sure, let's do it. So welcome to my living room. It is very preppy, pink and green, as you can see. Something that I've done in the house is there's a lot of products from people I've had on the podcast or even some clients, and then just brands that I love, honestly. I'm a big supporter of small businesses and entrepreneurship, so I try to fill my home with that, which kind of leads me first here to this big yellow couch. I feel like a lot of people at first when I say I have a yellow sofa, they think that's wild, but it's honestly sort of a neutral. It's a pale yellow, so I feel like it goes with a lot more than people think. And it's just so cozy. So this is from Taylor Burke Home, Julianne Taylor Styles. She had this furniture business many years ago, and I have a lot of her pieces from when she had that. Now she is one of my friends. She's an influencer. She's on TikTok a lot, but I loved her furniture brand. So you'll see a lot of her pieces in our house. It's just so cozy. And right next to the sofa, I have a pair of these tables. So they're actually made by my dad. My dad is a very talented woodworker as a hobby. So growing up, he would always give my mom and I gifts that he'd make us. So these tables actually were a gift to my mom from him when I was younger. And when I bought the house, I kind of needed something here, so I stole them from my parents. And my dad had to make a new pair for my mom, but honestly on the bottom it probably has a little note from my dad that says Merry Christmas and whatever the date that he gave them to her is. And they're antique inspired, so they actually flip up. I think they're an antique candle holder style is what they are, but they're very special to me obviously because my dad made them. If we go over here, so the window treatments, they kind of inspired this whole room. They're from Fabric by Dana Gibson. I love Dana's design work. So I have a lot of her fabrics, a lot of her wallpaper, a lot of her decor pieces. I just love this print. I've had it in my house for many years now. And funny story, it has little pom-poms on it here. I have 2 Jack Russell Terriers. And so when the puppies were little, they actually tore the pom-poms up until as far as they could reach. So I had to get those re-put on. But I think it's just so fun. It's a little playful, even though it's a formal, long window treatment here. And then here's another one of these tables by my dad, like I said, that's so special to me. And Over here, the ottoman is Sandia Home, which was a client of mine, but no longer exists, the brand. But I love the shape of it, how it's sort of a clover shape. It's quite large, and the legs are actually lucite. And if you flip it over, one of the things about the brand is it's lined with seersucker on the bottom and has a little watermelon charm. So I just love the special details of this. It's made in Ohio, and just great quality. And like I said, I just love supporting small businesses and entrepreneurs. On here, I also have a flower arrangement. I love flowers in the home. You'll notice I don't have a lot of live plants. I have mostly flowers because I can't keep live plants alive inside the home. Only outside of the home can I do that. So these flowers are actually from a local farm down the street. I think they've been growing them in their greenhouse for like 100 years or something. It's crazy, but they smell so beautiful. And so I love, that it's local, and they're low maintenance compared to a plant. Then over here, this is another piece from Taylor Burke Home, just a little side table. I love it because it adds some texture to the space with the little alligator on it. This is actually a really funny story. So like I said, I have a lot of Dana Gibson in my home, and I love her pieces. And one time I received this vase with a note in my mailbox, and someone wrote a note that they live down the road and they walk past my house a lot taking their dog for a walk, and they noticed the Dana Gibson lamps in my window, which I'll show you in a second. And so they said she must love Dana Gibson, and she followed me on Instagram. Randomly she found me just because I have a public profile and I'm a local influencer and podcaster. So she knew it was my house, just piecing together the pictures of the lamps and then seeing them on the outside. So she gave this to me. She said it doesn't match her house. It's one of Dana Gibson's older pieces, honestly. And I just thought that was so kind and kind of shows what it's like living here in Unionville. Everyone's so kind, and it's such a small town sort of feel. So I always think that is such a fun story, but it's a cool piece. These living room chairs, they actually were my grandparents. So about when I bought my house, my grandparents were downsizing and moving. So I have a lot of their pieces. These were my big splurge when I first bought the house because they originally were like a cream white color, and I spent a lot to have them recover this hot pink. It's very me, it's very vibrant, it's very preppy. I saw an article with Katie from Life with a Dash of Whimsy, or now I think her blog Stripes and Whimsy, and she had hot pink chairs like this, and I felt so inspired back then. So I had them redone in hot pink, and they're so special because they were in my grandparents' living room. So these are the Dana Gibson lamps that I mentioned about the vase that was found in my mailbox and inspired kind of that connection. They're just obviously very vibrant. You can see the pattern from outside of my home. The bookshelves here are built in. When I purchased the house, like I said, it was very 80s and more modern style, lots of angles. So the windows went all the way down to the ceiling, including these. So I had these built in to kind of make it look more charming and quaint and cozy. So they're filled with a lot of coffee table books that are either cookbooks that my husband cooks. I do not cook, actually. I'm very lucky that my husband does all the cooking. So he has a lot of cookbooks here. We have a lot of coffee table books from authors or bloggers that I've met in the past, and so they're signed by them. And then also a lot of wine books, especially on the bookshelf on the other side. My husband and I, we love wine, not just drinking it, but learning about it and traveling places to discover a new wine. So we've been to Burgundy and Champagne. We have been to Santa Barbara. We've been to Tuscany. So you'll see a lot of wine books and lots of really big wine books, actually. So this is one of my favorite coffee table books. Lydia, you guys have actually seen her home on Homeworthy, but I'm a member of her supper club. So I'm in a lot of pages of this, and I think it is so colorful. There's so many great tips for entertaining, different party themes, and such a great community of women and men to support in here. So this is definitely one of my favorites, and it looks so pretty on a bookshelf. This is another favorite book of mine on the bookshelves, and actually my husband's favorite too. So part of our honeymoon, we went to Burgundy, which is one of the most prestigious wine areas in the country and is just so cool to learn about. So this entire book is just Burgundy, which is such a small region actually when it comes to wine, but there's so many different vineyards here. So this literally has every plot of land essentially and vineyard in it, which is just mind-blowing to me. If you love wine, this is definitely a must get. Our tour guide actually had been showing us around with this. The green walls, it just naturally spoke to me. It is called Grasshopper and by Sherwin-Williams. And when I had built the house, this was the paint color I picked. It just drew me into it. But it's funny, I have a funny story because a few years ago, I actually had what I call a quarter life crisis where I decided for a second that I didn't know if I wanted to do PR anymore and maybe I wanted to do interior design. So I scaled back on some of my clients and I went and got a certificate in interior design from Temple University and I shadowed an interior designer for a few months. And during those classes, though, I learned that, from my professor at least, this is her opinion, that green goes with everything. In nature, it's against literally every color out there all over the world. So it's a great neutral, even though it seems very bright and loud, it actually really works with a lot of colors. So I think if you're questioning a color to put on your wall, or maybe you're scared to dabble in colors for decorating, try green because it really does go so well with so many other colors. This cutie little elephant, I feel like he's really popular in design right now, and there's a lot of reproductions of him. But this we actually got from my husband's grandmother, and he sat on her screened-in porch in Minneapolis for many years, and I had always loved him. And so when she moved and downsized, I got this, and I just love it. I love how there's part of Will and his grandmother here with it, and it's just a great neutral. It goes with everything, and it's a really fun conversation piece. This orange credenza is one of my recent purchases in the past year or two. It's from Hibiscus House, and what I love about it is obviously it's so colorful, but it's this classic sort of chinoiserie shape, and so I layered it with a lot of picture frames. One of my clients years ago had a credenza and it was covered in picture frames, and I loved it. Like, it's a little bit chaotic, but I think it's so special because it has so many special memories to us. So there's some from our wedding, there's some from our trip to France and Italy, from our trip out west fly fishing, my bachelorette party. There's just so much core memories here, and I always love walking past it. Someday I hope to literally fill the entire thing with pictures and maybe take this away. But on here, we also collect these little baccarat flowers. I started collecting them during our wedding, so I've built a little bit of a collection of them and display them here. We had a lot of butterfly elements in our wedding a few years ago, and so they really speak to me. The overall style of the home is, I would say, traditional with a twist. My personal style, I always say, is preppy with a twist, and so it kind of combines traditional and preppy elements. It's very collected. There's so many pieces in here that are from my grandparents or Will's grandparents. So many pieces even that my dad has made for us. So it's a very collected, traditional, colorful home. So if you follow me this way, we'll go into the dining room next. Welcome to my dining room. It's actually open up to the living room. What's interesting about this house is that the front entry just comes straight into the dining room. There's no formal entryway, it just opens up into this, and this opens up into the living room, which I like it because it's great for entertaining the flow then back and forth through here. But I continued the green paint in here as well, and lots of Dana Gibson, you'll notice, fabrics in here. So let's start over here. This little stool I actually found at an estate sale. I love going to antique markets and estate sales and auctions, and that was a lucky day. It was in, I want to say Bryn Mawr or Gladwin. I went and found that, and I also found a like vintage set from 1960s of a Dior suit set. So I was having some good estate sale juju that day. But I recovered it with a Dana Gibson ginger jar fabric that ties in the pink and the orange throughout the spaces as well. So here, this kind of acts as our entryway table. We normally throw our keys up here. We have dog treats in this adorable little cookie jar. Our 2 little Jack Russells, they love their cookies. So this is a vintage piece here. It actually swivels. So if we're entertaining, we have extra seating, like it swivels and then opens up into a table. I think technically it's a card table is what it's referred to as, but we can use it for extra space for dining, or if you wanted to play a game on it, you could as well. And then over here, I have this bar cart from Society Social. I love Society Social. A lot of my big splurges when I bought the house were Society Social pieces. I just love how she uses color and how fun but still classic all of them are. So this bar cart is obviously filled with wine and drinks, but something special is this piece. So this is where you would store your whiskey or your cognac. And this was Will's grandfather, actually. He gave it to us. But the funny thing is there's nothing inside of these because we cannot find the key to unlock it. So his grandmother had given this to us, but like I said, we don't know where the key is. So basically you would originally store your alcohol in here and then lock it so you can't turn this to keep, servants or maids or kids out of it back then. And I just think it's really fun though, and a funny story, even though we can't find the keys. Going over here, I have these Society Social chairs. I love the bright pop of orange in this very classic silhouette, and it pairs nicely over here with all the gold accents that I have on this buffet. So all of the dark wood pieces, this 4-piece set, they all go together, and I found them actually on Facebook Marketplace, and I just had them recovered. So it's well loved and just classic, but like I said, I love finding a good deal or a steal and finding a way to use them. So on here on the buffet, I have some little antique pineapples, brass pineapples, more Dana Gibson lamps, some plates, and a Society Social bamboo mirror here. I really love to entertain, whether it's just having family over for the holidays, another couple for a dinner party, or even just throwing a themed party. I love a good theme. So I set this table pretty casually. A lot of times I would put a tablecloth too, but I kept it a little bit more simple. And I'll even do this if it's just Will and I, if it's a Sunday night and we're having steaks for dinner and I want to feel fancy. I'm a big component of using your nice and fancy things, or you'll never use them if you just store them away. So even if it's just the two of us, if I want to feel fancy or if I want to celebrate something simple, I'll just pull out our china. So here I have, this is actually our wedding china. It's the green apple lace from Motohita. And like I said, I love using it and layering it with other pieces too. These are beaded placemats, and they are from Beth Ladd Collections. They add some great texture and incorporate a couple different green patterns. And going off of believing in using your fancy things too, I also think pull out those linen napkins. I know they're a pain to clean, but they elevate so much and they make your guests feel like so welcomed and fancy. Like I said, even for a simple party. Then I did some floral arrangements here. I have a collection of vases and ginger jars from Dana's line. So I added in some pinks and greens and a touch of blue. And then I also have this ice bucket, which was Will's grandparents too. It's a little silver ice bucket. And I love the silhouette of it though. It's really a pretty one. These window treatments I recently had redone. I had them in just a hot orange originally, and I decided to do a little bit of a floral instead. I'm really leaning into a little bit more of preppy grand millennial mixed together. So I thought this is just really great, a little bit more elevated and sophisticated, I would say. But they still have the same vibrant colors that are in the space. So those same yellows, those same orange, greens, pinks, just in a different way than the other pieces. Over here is our china cabinet. And it's funny because before I met my husband, like I said, I don't like cooking. I do like to entertain though, but I actually had some Manolo Blahnik shoes that I would put in here for display just because I thought they were pretty and fun. And it's very Carrie Bradshaw-esque, I would say. But now that I'm married and, my husband might not necessarily appreciate a pair of high-heeled shoes in our china cabinet, I have collected a lot of Estelle glasses. So I have my collection of Estelle glasses in here, all different colors. But then I also have some really cute little espresso teacups from Will's grandmother. We have a collection of these for our wedding. She had given us these. And then I have a really cute little elephant tea kettle too. But these are just some fun little special pieces. We don't really use them, but I love to display them. And I love, that they were from family members. Let's go from the dining room right into my kitchen because I want to show you something. I think it's a great tip if you have a smaller kitchen and love to entertain. So this piece is a custom piece that my dad actually made for me because our kitchen is very tiny. And like I said, I love having parties. I love entertaining. So this looks great, but it actually has a ton of storage. So it's sort of our matcha tea, our Nespresso, coffee station setup. And then under here, this is just a curtain and it has coffee mugs, it has extra tea bags, it has different utensils. And if I'm having a party, what I'll do is I will take the stuff on top too and store them below. And then I can use this as a bar or maybe put a charcuterie board on here. It just gives us some extra room to work with in a tight space. And the best part is that it's on wheels, so I can move it around. Like if I want to put it on the side of the counter instead or in a completely different room and hide it, I can do all of that. So I think really if you have a small space, get creative with how you can store things and stuff on wheels. I think you can do a lot with that. My favorite space in the house is probably this living room where we're sitting in right now. This is one of the few spaces in the house that I haven't redecorated or repainted walls or wallpapered walls in here like 3 times since I've owned it. This has stayed the original green the entire time, which I think means that I really love it. And it's something classic that can evolve with time with different elements like furniture and decor. I just love all the colors in here, the pinks, the greens, the oranges, the yellows. And it all kind of was inspired by Dana Gibson, her fabrics and wallpapers, and then I jumped off from there. So I love to entertain. I have a group of girlfriends that, monthly we have mahjong. I like to host parties for the Derby or a great Christmas party or birthday parties. I love entertaining. So even though the house is small, every piece kind of leans into that and is smartly designed because of it. I have a whole prop room downstairs where I just keep lots of decor, lots of tabletop elements, and I love entertaining. So it's definitely something part of mine and my husband's lifestyle and part of this home. Welcome into our bar and game room area. This is a great place for hanging out with friends, and even just on a Friday night, Will and I like to come down here and have a cocktail for a change of scenery. So first, I want to start with the bar. I did this little cabana-inspired awning so that it looks like you're at a vacation bar. It's just so fun, I think. And then with that, we call this bar 2 Jack's Bar because we have 2 Jack Russell Terriers. So I have a little logo, if you want to say, for the bar. I have a sign with it. I have lots of napkins and drink stirs that say it. And I think that's a great tip. I've noticed it a lot recently too, is people are creating life logos or logos and branding for their home or a space in their home. And so that's kind of what we did down here with 2 Jack's Bar. On the bar, we have a lot of fun elements. For example, this we got made in Champaign region actually at the VUV, the headquarters or where they're located. So I have Unionville, they made that there, and it was a fun souvenir to bring home and place here on our bar. We have lots of wine then too from our travels, and this is just a small selection. We have some down here at the fridge and some on the other side of the room and then some in storage. Like I said, we love learning about wine and taking classes and traveling with our wine club. And over here too, you'll see that I have some of these champagne painted bottles. These were actually from our wedding, so I kept them. They have our wedding crest on them and the date, the florals from it. And a funny story with that is, so we did a champagne tower toast, and I popped both of these open and then poured. But I did not realize that I had one sparkling rosé and one champagne. So we kind of made a blend as I poured those down. But I think it's a funny story and a great memory. And I love that we were able to keep the bottles and have them displayed here. Then also over here, I have some more bottles that friends and family have given me painted. And this ice bucket also came from champagne from the Veuve headquarters. And we have a big collection of wine corks from, different wineries that we visited or tried and enjoyed. So I think that's a fun little memento to just keep these and store them. And then occasionally Will and I will look through them and be like, oh, remember that wine, and talk about it. We have a wine fridge here too with these fun little towels that say pours by Patricia and cocktails by Patricia. It's just a little personalized touch. This is our game table. I host Mahjong with a group of my friends. Once a month, we alternate who gets to host it. So whenever I'm hosting, we play down here. My dad made this for me for Christmas this year, actually. So it's a newer piece. And what's great about it, I won't do it because it'll create a mess, but this top comes off and there's a whole other table under it. So I have a puzzle under there actually that I'm working on. But it has great features like this comes out, and so you can put your tiles on here or your cocktail. It's just very versatile. The chairs here, I originally was looking for chairs that I could paint the same hot pink as this. And I found these on an auction site. So they were actually the first auction site piece that I won. I bid on and won. And when I picked them up, all of my friends and family were like, you can't paint them. Like, they have such beautiful detail, like that woodwork here. So I compromised and I recovered them this great hot pink fabric from Madcap Cottage. Down in this space, I have a lot of Madcap Cottage fabrics. And then instead, what we did is we painted little pink and gold details on the legs to sort of tie that in, but not completely repaint and, I don't want to say ruin the chairs, but to some people it might have been ruining the chairs if I painted it all hot pink. So we spend a ton of time right here. These swivel chairs, these are Taylor Burke Home. And originally in the space before I had that game table, we had 2 swivel chairs and then just a little cocktail table, and we would just hang out down here. But it's been so nice having the actual game table. But I still kept them in the space. They're great because they swivel. And I have some more Madcap Cottage fabrics on the pillows here. And this piece is really fun. So this is Varnish Collection. I had the 2 sisters of this brand on my podcast before. They make furniture and accessories with woven materials, and anything pink just naturally draws me in. So I think this is such a fun little statement piece and conversation piece when we're entertaining. Then this wood wine shelf, it doesn't look super fancy, but it's actually really special to me. So what's funny is my dad had made that when he was in high school in woodshop class. So I think it's great that somehow my family still kept it all these years and I ended up with it. And now even the fact that he makes so many great pieces with wood, I feel like this was probably one of the first things he ever made. So that's really special and has a lot of wine on it from our travels as well there. I worked at an agency in Philadelphia out of college. I have a degree in fashion merchandising and communications PR. So I always knew I wanted to be in the fashion industry, but I didn't want to be a fashion designer. So I kind of steered towards communications with that degree in fashion because of it. I worked at an agency in Philadelphia. They handled mostly liquor brands and did the marketing for large companies like Hendrick's Gin and Narragansett Beer, but then they developed their own brands inside and we would do the marketing and PR. But while I was there, I had started freelancing with more lifestyle and fashion related clients from connections that I had and professors that I had. So I kind of built up a roster pretty quickly and started my own business very soon after working at an agency, probably within a year or 2. I went off on my own. So I've had Piqued PR now for like 10 years. And I work with, like I said, lots of lifestyle brands, home decor, jewelry, clothing brands, pitching them, doing traditional press with larger publications and magazines. I do a lot of events with that as well all over the country. And I started my podcast in 2020, spring of 2020, working with all of these brands and seeing them struggle during that time in COVID. And I always had a blog, honestly, since college, and I would do interviews on that blog. And during COVID, I had wanted to start a podcast because I like to consume interviews and that type of media now through listening to podcasts instead of reading it on a blog. So during that time off in COVID, it kind of put some fire under my buns to figure it out and launch a podcast. So I've had the podcast now for about 5 years, and it has just continued to grow. So that's, my other part of my career and business. Welcome to the master bedroom. I think the main focal point is obviously this sort of canopy valance bed. Growing up, I had a beautiful canopy bed that was pink and cream lace. And ever since then, I have wanted to recreate that and feel like a princess again, honestly. So we've had this made, and it just makes it feel extra cozy. And honestly, I didn't think it would make the room feel bigger because it is a small space, but it makes it seem a lot taller, which I really, really love. So I have this beautiful mix of florals with stripes and pinks and greens and blues. I think a lot of people, when they see my house, they're like, it's so colorful, but really it flows because I use a lot of the same colors throughout. So even in here, it's a lot of pink, a lot of orange, and a lot of yellow, and I have those in the other spaces as well. I know this is like a huge faux pas, and all interior designers think ceiling fans are so ugly, but I cannot get rid of this. My husband and I actually use it every night for the sound and the breeze. So as much as it pains me and I think it totally ruins everything, it's something that we just have to live with. So over here, I have some antique vintage bamboo furniture throughout this space. I just love things that are chinoiserie and have a Palm Beach sort of element to them. So that's this as well, and a beautiful little bamboo tray and ginger jars with an O customized for us for Olson. And I use them for flowers. These are by Lauren Haskell Designs, which, funny, for our wedding, I am very into tablescapes. So we had custom ginger jars made for that. They were similar to this, but they had the floral pattern from our wedding suite invite. So I love using her ginger jars throughout the house. You might notice these wood boxes, and I have another larger one over there. But these my dad had made for me. Growing up, he would give me, like I said, something that he made every year. So for a while, he was making me beautiful jewelry boxes. And these kind of just came from inside his head, his imagination. And so we store, our jewelry, my husband's watches, that sort of thing in them. But I think they add like such a great element of conversation and something different to the space. And I don't always have dark wood, and especially in here, so I like that it kind of grounds everything with a little bit of darker color. I love chappy wrap, being a Northeastern girly. Chappy wrap makes the best blankets, and especially they're dog friendly. You can throw them in the wash. They still come out feeling just as nice. So this is the chappy wrap from the Madcap Cottage collab, which we have this print downstairs that you saw on some other pieces. So I just brought it up here though instead, and they make seriously the best blankets. This is just a cute little trinket tray that I got in Williamsburg, Virginia, and it's actually the same maker of our wedding china, and I just think it's so silly and fun. So I had to have that, and normally I'll use it to put my Apple earbuds in there in the nighttime, or a charger, an iPhone, and it just sits bedside. And then here's another jewelry box that my dad made for me growing up. This one holds a lot of necklaces, so lots of hanging pieces. And this piece of art is a print from a local artist. Well, I think she's in California now, but she was local at the time, Constance Culpepper. And I think it's really fun. It has 2 dogs on it. It has preppy colors and stripes, and just spoke to me. This little bathroom is very tiny, but it's like a little girly jewel box, I want to say, with all the pink, and even the beautiful bow details on the window treatments that are the same fabric as the bedroom. But the biggest piece is this. It looks like wallpaper, but it's actually hand stenciled, and originally it was hand stenciled by my mom when I bought the place with orange and white. And then about a year or so ago, I redid it to be light pink and painstakingly had to do every little detail, which took forever, but it's just so special. I don't want to paint over it yet. I don't want to do away with it, but it was very time consuming. And then I just have some local art from a local artist here, pulling in some of those blue colors, and Wheezy Towels, another favorite of mine. I had Liz on my podcast before. I love anything with a monogram, being Preppy. So these are great. They're the best towels, and they have so many fun colors and personalizations that you can get. All right, so if you follow me up here, I would love to show you our office next. Welcome to the office. This space, actually, my husband, he works from home a few days a week, so normally he's in here majority of the time. I have a separate office outside, but I do sometimes film some episodes of the podcast in here, so you might recognize the wallpaper on the other wall. But this space, I love it because compared to everything else, I want to say it's a little bit more masculine, which is why it's great for my husband. Some might say otherwise, but for me, it's a little bit more masculine. The blue pieces here, they were a piece that when I originally bought the house, I had purchased them. They were just from a big box retailer, honestly, nothing special, but I just loved the navy. I love the size of them. And back then I was working in this space, so they've served us very well. I have some pieces from Dana Gibson on here as well. This duck or swan, I don't know which one he is, but we'll call him a duck for our purposes. I think he's such a cool and unique vase. I have just some daffodils in here, but you could just put regular flowers or sometimes those little foam greenery pieces, those balls. I sometimes stack a bunch of them inside, and then he's on top of a little green tray as well. So over here, this is the wallpaper that a lot of people probably see sometimes when I'm doing my podcast. This is Meg Braff. She is another favorite interior designer of mine. I love her use of color and pattern, kind of Palm Beach chic inspired pieces. So this is just such a lovely green chinoiserie pattern that I adore. The benches here, my grandmother actually had this and had given it to me, and I just had it recovered. It used to be a dark navy blue velvet, and it kind of was damaged over the years, so I had it just done in a lighter blue velvet. But I think it's beautiful and just a great spot if I want to come in here and have a chat with my husband while he's working, and pretty neutral actually too. This shelf is from Ballard Designs. I really like it because even though it's large, it doesn't look as large as it is, just because it's metal and very open. So on here I have a lot of books for when I studied interior design, when I studied fashion. I also taught fashion for a little bit at Immaculata University, where I actually attended college. And then there's some books of my husband's as well for law, but just a great collection of books that are actually useful. This is a special piece. So this is actually an ostrich egg. One of my aunts was living in Florida for a while and near an ostrich farm, and someone had given her an ostrich egg. So I actually had it repainted by a local artist a few years ago in this beautiful blue chinoiserie pattern, but I just think it's such a unique piece and is art, but in a different way. This is one of our guest baths. I love the green quadrille wallpaper. I think it's bright and cheerful and makes a small space seem bigger because of the bright colors. I have some Wheezy products as well in here. So they're shower curtain and towels. This is a great piece of art too. I think it's fun for a bathroom, a little nude, but not in a vulgar way, in a fun way. Another tip that I love for when I entertain is I always put out one of these little hand towel trays with some fun hand towels. So sometimes for the holidays, obviously I'll do something holiday themed or Easter themed, whatever it may be. But this one for spring, I just did some florals. And I think that's just a special little touch. And everyone loves to see what new hand towels will be in the bathroom next. Home is collected. I feel like I've said that a lot, but that's really what home means to me. It's not necessarily about following the trends or listening to what a designer or another person might tell you to do works or doesn't work. I think it's just about gravitating towards what you love and building from there and building collected pieces within that. Pieces that have special meanings and moments to you, whether it's something passed down from your grandmother or it's something you picked up on a trip. It doesn't have to necessarily be expensive or fancy. It just has to be meaningful and make you feel happy. Homeworthy, it was so fun having you at my house here in Unionville, Pennsylvania, but you have to go now, so bye.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to go to homeworthy.com for exclusive content, shopping guides, and so much more.